We should not be weighing our kids in school, and yet 25 states require BMI screening in their students, and 11 states require reporting this to parents. And the best part of this is, actually the worst part, we have zero evidence that this does anything or is helpful at all. But what do we have? Evidence that it's harmful. Hi, I'm Dr. Taylor, and I talk about healthy relationships with food for kids. So what kind of evidence do we have that weighing kids in school is harmful? First, we have anecdotal evidence. I posted on my Instagram a few times, and the comments were rife with people saying that this caused them harm, was the trigger for their eating disorder, or was just a traumatic memory from their childhood. Pause to read those. Next, we also have some case studies showing harm. Here is a paper discussing a 14-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl who developed eating disorders after BMI screenings in schools. Both of these kids started dieting or excessive exercise routine after the BMI screening, and those are predictors of developing eating disorders in kids. Real risky stuff. And we have a clinical trial. The evidence is a little murky in this though, so I'm gonna walk you through it real quick. So in this study, weight dissatisfaction increased more in the kids who were weighed in schools, but it was still a small effect. Weight talk also increased a little bit more in the kids who were weighed in schools, but that was a small effect too. But there was no BMI changes in the kids who were weighed. And we also have zero evidence that BMI screening has any measurable effect on health in kids, which is the reason that a lot of people try to justify using this practice in the first place. And we have to think about the message that we're sending kids when we do these BMI screenings in schools. In a school health screening where very few things are measured, if we're measuring BMI, we're sending the message to our kids that this is a very important marker of their health. And it's not a great marker of health. Let's go through a few of the comments that people say to me when I say that weight should not be done in schools. But before I respond to those comments, make sure you like this video so the YouTube algorithm brings you back here, and subscribe for more upcoming videos on healthy relationships with food for kids. Comment number 1, weight screening can identify kids with malnutrition. Weight screening in schools can protect kids who are malnourished. It can identify them. First, that's not the reason that many of these programs are put into place. Many of these programs are put into place for pediatric obesity prevention, and they don't even do that. They don't have that effect. So while BMI screening can give us a red flag for malnutrition, one data point doesn't really do much for us. We want to see trends in growth. Seeing concerning trends in growth, so multiple data points over time, is what really helps us identify kids at risk for malnutrition, not one data point. What we could do is implement actual evidence-based questionnaires to screen for malnutrition if that's really the concern here. One questionnaire is the PNST. That's used to screen for malnutrition in the clinical setting. It's not meant for schools, but I think it's still a better choice than weighing kids in the schools. Next, which I think is an even better option than the PNST or weighing kids in school, is screening kids for food insecurity and eating disorders. When we're talking food insecurity, the Child Food Security Survey model can help us screen kids for that, and then maybe the schools can connect them to the resources that they need, which in my opinion is much more appropriate than screening for malnutrition in schools. Next comment I get, parents need to know what their kid's BMI is. They don't need to know that information from schools. That's not what schools are for. They can get that information from their doctor's office. Also, BMI is not a fabulous indicator of health in kids. Like I said before, single data points aren't super useful in screening kids. We want to track growth over time, and schools don't do that. Changes in BMI can be useful in the clinical setting to identify malnutrition and risk for other medical concerns like cancer, thyroid problems, celiac disease, feeding disorders, and eating disorders. But teachers are not trained in identifying concerning trends in growth and flagging kids who are at risk. And it's unfair of us to expect teachers and school admin to be screening for this when they're not trained for it. They're overworked, they're underpaid, they have so much on their plate. We shouldn't be expecting that of schools. Also, I hear from a lot of teachers who are really stressed that this practice is going to harm their kids, and they don't want to do it either. So what should you do? If you're a parent, opt out. Ask your kid's school at the beginning of each semester, will my child be weighed for any reason? Ask via email so there's documentation, and if the answer is yes, send an email like this. I like to keep these emails short and sweet, just no need for explanation because you don't owe anyone an explanation for that. If you're a teacher, let your school know that you're uncomfortable with this practice. If you can, don't include any weights in your curriculum. So no weighing kids in PE class or health class, and no calculating BMI in math class. If you are mandated to talk about this or weigh kids or include it in your curriculum because you're a health staff member or you have no control over your curriculum, here's my tips. Notify parents ahead of time and communicate the risk of this practice. That would include weight talk or teasing, triggering disordered eating, and triggering weight control or dieting behaviors. All risky stuff for kids. Give ample opportunity and time for parents to opt out. And if you're just required to discuss the weight, perhaps bring a discussion of diet culture into that. Keeping everything age appropriate, of course. When it comes to the actual weighing, weigh students in private. Privacy is really important. Conduct blinded weights, meaning have them turn around and don't give the number unless they ask for it. And discourage weight talk after the fact. And if you're a school admin and your state requires you to weigh your kids or do some sort of BMI screening, do everything that I mentioned for the teachers. Offer ample opportunities to your parents to opt out. Emails and letters and lots of them. Look into including body image curriculum in your school. Screen for eating disorders amongst your students and don't weigh the kids that screen positive for that. Also consider that some of your staff may be struggling with eating disorders and disordered eating and how this practice may be triggering or affect them. Train your staff on how to reduce weight stigma in the education setting. It does happen and it is a problem. And have a plan in place for managing weight bullying. Okay, that's it. Opt your kids out of being weighed in school. The benefits do not outweigh the risks. I do not like this practice at all. Bye.